Thank you for joining us today for another great episode of the Clean Money Podcast. Today, we continue our series, Tales from the Dark Side of Real Estate, where we share some of the more interesting stories of our adventures in this business. These are true stories that we have experienced ourselves. These kinds of stories are rarely shared by anyone else, but you can find them right here on the Clean Money Podcast. Because as you know, it's not all sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns out there in the world, even though Instagram may want you to think so. So hopefully you enjoy these short episodes. And if you have comments, think they're crazy, or have thoughts about them, definitely put it in the comments section. Like and subscribe to hear more of our crazy experiences. And if you have a crazy experience of your own, definitely put it in the comments. And let us know if something like this has happened to you before, and perhaps you'll make it on the podcast with us one day. All right, so let's get going. Today, we're talking more about crappy apartments. Literally, we're talking about sewage issues and other things. So we can talk for days about sewage issues because Jesse and I have bought a lot of old apartment complexes in the past, heavy value adds. And we know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we know sewage is going to be an issue. So we factor that in from the beginning, and we are very heavy in our due diligence on the sewage issue. And that's what brings us today to an apartment community that we were buying. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that one, Jesse?
Yeah, absolutely. This one also had a very large critter issue. So we'll get into that. So this is a great value add, fits our mark. It's a, what was it, around 200 units, 240-ish units?
Now, this one was, it's next door to that. It's 164 units.
That's right. Yeah. So this is a 160-ish units and an area that Fort Worth, and we even met the councilman who was talking about everything Fort Worth was doing to improve the roads, improve the infrastructure. They could put a lot of effort in this area to make it a lot nicer. So we were excited, right? So of course we get in there, we start doing some due diligence. We run into some weird things like, hey, there's no insulation in the attic.
No insulation in the attic. Like, how does that happen?
Yeah. So walking in units and they're all 80 degrees and all the ACs are frozen, not even turning on anymore. And they've just never done anything about it. You know,
so whoever built it was like, I'm not putting insulation in the attic. Just, I want to save some money.
They'll be fine. Yeah,
they'll be fine. They're poor. They're used to being in 80-degree weather or inside the unit with the air conditioner on full blast. Yeah.
Now Fort Worth, not required, I guess. Yeah, insane. So. During this process, and then we get into this crappy situation again. We look at the sewage. Pay some people come out there and scope it, and literally almost every single building is just cracked. If you've bought a property with cast iron pipes, anything before 1980-ish, depending on your state, you know this is an issue. So
when you say pipes, you're talking about cracked pipes in the buildings or out from the buildings to the main utility?
Most of this was underneath the buildings, all the way across underneath the building. Yeah. So every single one of them almost was cracked out on the very bottom of the U. So it's just leaking out. So we saw a couple places where they've obviously replaced it here and there, whack-a-mole. But through this process, we found out that it's going to be about a $1 million to $1.5 million to fix, replace all this piping under all of these different buildings. And all that work doesn't bring us any more revenue. We've got to kick out tenants. We've got to figure out what to do. And that doesn't help us out at all and help us spend money on things that matter, like making it cleaner, safer, nicer for our tenants. But instead, we have to spend all this money on fixing these pipes. So, Sam, do you remember we talked to the seller about this? And do you remember what he said about these pipes by chance? Basically the same thing as the last people, right? Remember that?
Yeah, it was, there's nothing wrong, or you can just patch it and our guy says, I had a plumber scope and it was fine. It's all just fine. Now,
Yeah.
yeah, just fine. It's just sewage getting leaked out into the yards. It makes the, grass greener. You don't need to do anything. And so, Jesse, you had them go back, right? The plumbers go back and provide detailed video. So if you ever wanted to see videos of sewage pipes, let us know. We paid a lot of money for these videos, so we're happy to share them. But they were broken, and they were broken in places that we couldn't easily fix, right? They were broken at Wise, they were broken all along. And if you're not tracking the entire sewage infrastructure for a lot of the United States, particularly in the cities where they don't have septic tanks, where it's all coming into the main sewage, that infrastructure is crumbling. And when I say crumbling, these cast iron pipes are crumbling, just breaking into pieces. And the only way to fix them is to rip them all up and put in new, thick PVC pipe.
Yeah. Or you need to they had a maintenance guy there that could do it for $10,000 for everything.
Yeah, right.
Gotta hire that guy.
Yeah, gotta hire that guy. If anyone ever tells you that, they are out of their mind. They have no idea what they're talking about.
So already we're pretty much one foot out the door, right? And then we find like something really strange. As we're walking around, I noticed you go up the stairs, to get into a unit, upstairs, downstairs, outside stairs, and there's little access panels, and some of them are like bolted shut. So I asked a question, and evidently they have an issue with homeless people crawling up in the attic and living up there. So we've all had like a squirrel, a raccoon in your roof, attic, scurrying around up there. I guess they have problems with homeless humans scurrying around up there.
That's a big critter.
That's a big critter.
Be sitting around enjoying your 85-degree weather inside your apartment, and you have a human fall through the ceiling. And after he slams into your table, he might try to start eating your food. Oh, sorry about that. Do you mind if I have some of those cookies?
Yeah.
That's terrible. That's a big critter.
Big critter.
So, please don't take us wrong by laughing at these situations. These are real life situations. We have to laugh because if not, you're going to cry and just wonder, like, who is operating this project? And that one, again, was owned by a syndicator, and they were selling it. They were trying to sell it at the height of the market. I think they started out at 14.5 or 15 million. We had them down to 13 when the market interest rates went crazy. Our first lenders backed out. They went insolvent, by the way, and hosed a lot of people. Our second lenders came in. They backed out. We went back to the sellers and said, hey, the only way we can get this now is at $12 million. They refused. They put it back on the market, and then they sold it for a little under 12 million. So 7 months later, it closed literally 2 weeks ago. And I have no idea if the buyers were aware at all of homeless people being in the attics, no insulation being in the attic, or the plumbing issues. So who knows if you're invested in a DFW deal that closed this year, 2023, you might ask your operator if there's homeless people in the attic. They may say, oh, no, there's not. I know. But do they know?
You're living in an apartment, you think that's a squirrel. It might not be a squirrel in your attic.
Or a raccoon. And worst case, with it being 100 and something degrees outside, somebody could pass away up there. And then you have a liability, a big time liability issue. So I hope you enjoyed this story. This is a true story. Fortunately, nobody died in this story. And we hope that if you invest in a syndication definitely make sure you invest with folks who have been around the corner, who have experienced bad things before and know how to prevent them in the future, and that their due diligence wasn't a checklist they bought off the internet, but is something that was hard earned through years of experience. Because what we check out is not necessarily what other people check out. I'm sure that your folks are probably not looking for homeless people in the attic, if they even check the attics of the buildings at all. Thank you again for joining the Clean Money Podcast. Like, subscribe, leave comments. Let us know what you think about these stories from the dark side of real estate, and have a wonderful day.